On Holy Thursday, here shown from St. Demetrios Greek Orthodox Church in Jamaica, New York, the defining ritual in Orthodox practice is the reading of the 12 Gospels, interspersed with psalms and hymns from the Passion story, a repetition and reminder over and over again that God is love, that God loved us to the end. The cross is the supreme act of sacrificial love. In the words of Christ, there is no greater love than this.
So the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Jews seized Jesus and bound him. First they led him to Annas, who he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who had given counsel to the Jews that it may be expedient that one man should die for the people. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. As this disciple was known to the high priest, he entered the court of the high priest along with Jesus, while Peter stood outside the door. So the other disciple who was known to the high priest went out and spoke to the maid who kept the door and brought Peter in. The maid who kept the door said to Peter, "Are not you also one of them, this man's disciples?" He said, "I am not." Now the servants and the officers had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves. Peter also was with them, standing and warming himself. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teachings. And Jesus answered him, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in the synagogues and in the temples, where all Jews come together. I have said nothing secretly. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said this, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, "Is that how you answered the high priest?" And Jesus answered him, "If I have spoken wrongly, bear witness to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Annas then sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They said to him, "Are not you also one of his disciples?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the servants of the high priest and kinsmen of the man whose ear Peter had cut off asked, "Did not I see you in the garden with him?" And Peter again denied it, and at once the cock crowed. Then they led Jesus from the house to Caiaphas, to the praetorium. It was early. They themselves did not enter the praetorium, so they might not be defiled, but might eat the Passover.
And so on this night of Christ's arrest by the soldiers, denial by Peter, and judgment by the priests, the tragedy of the soul is contrasted with the betrayal of Judas and the ultimate crucifixion of Christ. Today, Judas is detached from his master and becomes attached to the devil. Blinded by the passion of greed, he falls from light into darkness. For how can he possibly see when he sold the creator of light for 30 pieces of silver? So many of these hymns begin with the word today, precisely because the events are taking place here and now. What is remarkable about Orthodox liturgy, especially during Holy Week, is that it is never simply a remembrance of past events. The members of the congregation become participants. Everything takes place now, as if occurring in their midst. On Palm Sunday, Orthodox Christians prayed, "Come, let us go up to Jerusalem with Christ and be crucified with him." And tonight, on Holy Thursday, as they hear the gospel readings, the crucifixion unfolds before their very eyes. Like Simon the Cyrene, they too are called to bear the cross of Christ.
Τότε έπαιξαν αυτό, εξέδισαν αυτόν τη χαμίδα και ενέδισαν αυτόν τα ημάτια αυτού. Και απήγαν αυτόν εις το σταυρόσε, εξερχόμενοι δε εύρων άνθρωπον, Κυριναίου ονόματι Σίμωνα. Τούτον ηγάρευσαν, είναι άρη του σταυρών αυτού. Σήμερον κρεμάται επί ξύλου, ο ενίδας τη γην κρεμάσας.
An icon of Christ on the cross is dramatically taken in procession around the church and placed before the eyes of all those present, a powerful recognition that sin and evil have not disappeared. Holy Thursday marks the day of this world, an admission of the true nature of this world that requires forgiveness and healing. The cross signifies the ultimate clash between the power of love and the love of power. Yet in the horror of loneliness, suffering, and death, already the light of the resurrection begins to shine. Some of the most beautiful chant takes place on this night. Now the quill is dipped in ink by the unjust judges. Christ is poetically represented as saying, "They stripped me of my clothes. They dressed me in a robe of purple. I bared my back to the whipping and did not turn from their spitting." His mother responds, "My son, where is the beauty of your countenance? Make haste and rise up so that I too may witness your resurrection." Indeed, the whole world participates in the mystery of the cross. Lord, when you ascended on the cross, fear and trembling seized all of creation. The cross and the resurrection, two aspects of a single undivided act of salvation. As the crucified Christ is taken around the church, the priest and the cantors sing, "Today, he who suspended the earth on the waters is himself suspended on the wood of a tree. We venerate your passion, O Christ. Show us also your glorious resurrection." And in this way, with a sober sense of hope, Orthodox Christians prepare for the burial of their Lord's body.
Δείξον ημίν και την ένδοξό σου Ανάστασιν.
Σήμερον κρεμάτεν επί